What's up guys? Today we're doing another Built by Better Bolts video. Today we have a Rocky Mountain Solo C70. We're gonna deck this thing out completely. We're gonna do some copper bolts on this thing. It's gonna look awesome. We're gonna have everything. Pardon any noise while I'm talking. We are in a machine shop, so there's machines running all day long. Let's get into this build. Okay, first things first, let's get this thing unboxed. Get the seat post out of here. Get our first look at the bike. So this is the black SRAM build. Let's get some of the accessories out of the box. Let's get this thing out of our way. All right. Let's get this thing cleaned up. All right, let's get a little carbon paste in here. Make sure the seat post doesn't slip around. All right. We'll get the seat post in, throw it up in the stand, and we can get our first look at the bike. All right, first things first, let's get it all unwrapped, and we'll start getting into the bolt install. Pro tip for any time you're building a bike with Axis, plug the batteries in as soon as you start building. That way they're charged when you finish the build and you're not excited to ride with dead batteries. All right, we're gonna go with copper on all the bolts on this build. So I've got all the stem bolts here and I'm just gonna put a little bit of Loctite on all of them, and then we'll get that handlebar mounted so it's not hanging anymore. All right, let's get this stem mounted. It's always important to go back over and torque check all of your hardware just to make sure everything's to manufacturer torque spec. All right, let's get this top cap bolt switched out. We're gonna have almost every single bolt on this bike, so it's gonna end up looking pretty awesome when we're finished. There we go. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the water bottle cage bolts on this bike, of which there are 23. So right here, this is a stock Rocky Mountain water bottle cage bolt. It's a steel bolt with a button head on it. Here we have our standard water bottle cage bolt. This is a button head, and this is gonna be made out of titanium. And then on this bike, we're gonna use these, which are our low profile head water bottle cage bolt. So you can see it's a lot flatter, you save a little bit more weight, and you also end up with a much cleaner look. Especially since a lot of these on this bike are going to end up just being bolt plugging holes. This is one area on this bike where I think these bolts are going to make a massive difference, not only in weight, but also in the look of the bike. Getting these low profile heads on here are going to make this look a lot more streamlined, a lot more flush, as well as each bolt being about half the weight of the bolt it's replacing. Let's go ahead and get all of these water bottle cage bolts swapped out. All we've done so far is the stem and the water bottle cage bolts, and look at our bin of replacements already. There's gonna be so many bolts on this bike. And now we're gonna move on to the brake calipers. So over here we have the setup for all of our brake calipers. Here we have the rear brake, and then here we have everything that's gonna go on the front brake. So unfortunately we don't make this size in copper at the moment, so we're gonna use black for these. These are 37 mil flat mount brake bolts. Next to it, we're gonna have the brake body bolts. So we make the two bolts that hold the clamshell together for the brakes. And then this is gonna be the pad retention pin and the bleed port. Over here, we're gonna have the two bolts that hold the brake adapter on, the two clamshell bolts for the caliper bodies, the two countersunk bolts that hold the brake adapter to the brake pad pin, and another bleed port. So let's go ahead and get all of these guys on. All right, starting over here with the rear brake, I like to always start with these caliper body bolts. I like to change them one at a time. You are going to still need to bleed the brakes, but changing these bolts one at a time does stop you from losing fluid. So we always recommend bleeding these brakes anyway, just to be safe. You're gonna wanna use quite a bit of Loctite on these bolts. As you'll see when you take them out, they also use quite a bit of Loctite on the stock hardware. These are gonna get torqued to 12 Newton meters once you get them installed. That is what SRAM recommends as a torque spec. Now moving on to the caliper mounting bolts. These are going to be flat mount caliper bolts. The best way to tell what size you're going to need is to just take out the one that you have and measure the bolt shaft. So that would be from the base of the bolt head to the tip of the threads. You need to know how long that bolt is. Every manufacturer for the rear brake uses something a little bit different. Specialized tend to use 32 millimeters, and Trek on most bikes uses 22 millimeters, but it's going to depend how thick the chainstay is. So what you're gonna wanna do is just take out what you have already and measure it. That's gonna get you the easiest measurement. We do also have a graph on our website showing how to measure how thick your chainstay is to be able to tell what bolts you'll need, but the easiest way to do this is going to be measuring your bolts. All right, next we're gonna replace this brake pad pin. So we're gonna take that clip off and we're going to pull the stock pin out. Now we're gonna actually take the pads out on this one because we're also replacing this bleed port here. And when you do that, you can leak a little bit of fluid out. So it's a great idea to remove the pads. That way you don't have to worry about getting any fluid on your pads because that will ruin them. Take this bleed port out and you're gonna lose a little bit of fluid here. There's really no way around it. You're going to have to bleed these brakes when you're finished. So, using a pick, we're going to change this O-ring that comes on the stock bolt to the new copper bolt. Okay, now that we have this O-ring swapped over, we're gonna go ahead and install this back in. We are going to bleed these brakes once we're finished with the build. So it would be a good idea to leave these pads out, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to put the pads back in and we'll bleed them off camera after. Clean up the area just in case any fluid leaked down. And then we're gonna throw this new pad retention bolt in. Right there. And don't forget to put the pad retaining clip back on when you're done. Now that we've got that caliper decked out, let's get the front one decked. Typically, this is where you would see your front derailleur, but this bike does not have one. But we're gonna still change these bolts out that go into these braze-on holes. So these are gonna be M4 by 12 button head bolts, which we have available on the website. If you are running a front derailleur, you can still replace these as well. And then holding on the front derailleur is typically an M5 by 15 millimeter bolt, which we have available individually on the website as well. Here we are, getting every little bit of copper accent on this bike. All right, now we're gonna work on the rear derailleur's limit screws. So up here at the B limit, we're gonna replace this one. This is not yet a bolt that we make in copper, so we're gonna put black here. It's gonna black out this derailleur and look really good. What you'll wanna be watching out for is this here is a plastic insert. That is what helps this bolt from threading out on its own. And you wanna make sure it doesn't come out with your bolt, and if it does, you wanna make sure you swap it with the bolt to the new one. That way you don't lose that piece. Without it, after you tighten and set your B limit, high limit, low limit, whatever it is, that will lose its tune very quickly. So you wanna make sure you don't lose those pieces when you're taking these out. On that one, I got lucky. Typically they do come out with the bolt, so you're just gonna wanna keep an eye when you're replacing this. This obviously is going to require you to retune your derailleur afterward. So you may need to bring it to a shop if that is something that you cannot do on your own, but you absolutely will need to tune your derailleur once you finish up replacing these bolts. Getting this last one in there. These are the same limit screws between Force, Rival, and Red. So all of them are going to use the exact same limit screws. All right, let's move on to the pulley wheels. We are still working on a pulley wheel kit to fit all road bikes, so we have not released any yet. This one happens to use a pulley wheel for the lower here that is the same as SRAM's mountain bikes. And then for the upper pulley wheel, it's going to use an M4 by, there we go. For the upper pulley wheel, it's going to use an M4 by 12 millimeter countersunk bolt. So we're going to have that as well. This is the upper pulley wheel. And this again is an M4 by 12 millimeter countersunk. Not all of the road derailleurs use this bolt. Some of them use a much longer countersunk bolt. But if you pull yours out and you measure that it's 12 millimeters, then this is going to be something available on our website as well. There we go. While we were digging around with the rear derailleur, I noticed this one here and took it out and measured it, and it is an M4 by 8 millimeter bolt. So we have an M4 by 8 millimeter button head bolt. It's gonna be a little bit of a different head style, but it's gonna give it a more flush look as well. A little bit more streamlined than the one that was in there. There we are. Coming under the frame now, this little door is held on by two M4 by 12 millimeter bolts, countersunk head. So we're gonna go ahead and throw those in as well. Not gonna miss any details on this thing. These doors on either side of the bike to hold on these cable covers are also M4 countersunk bolts. They are a tad shorter than the M4 by 10s that we carry, but there's plenty of room inside the frame for us to run a longer bolt, so we're gonna swap these out as well. All right, we're gonna add the finishing touches here. No one's ever gonna see these under the brake hoods, but we will know that they are swapped out for some copper titanium. Again, we're gonna change this O-ring out that's on here for the new bolt. We need to move that guy over. We just pull it off with a pick. And once again, once you get these installed, you are going to want to bleed your brakes. We're gonna go ahead and get that done off camera once this build gets finished up. All right, now it's time for the fun part. Let's see how much weight we saved. So everything right here, this is the stock hardware, and it's measuring about 165.2 to 165.15, kind of fluctuates just with the drafts of the outside wind coming in. That is the stock hardware there. So if we shovel these guys off and we replace it with our new hardware that I went out and picked a new one of each, we come out to 70.45 grams, which is a weight savings of about 86.9 grams on this bike, just in the hardware. So we saved quite a bit here. Plus we end up with so much good looking hardware all over the bike. Thanks for following along with this build. Let's get this thing outside and get some sweet shots of it.